I'm excited about today's live show because we're going to talk about a very awesome topic, which is we're going to talk about cults. Yay! Usually you can tell more about the person using the word cult and their belief system than who they're actually defining as a cult or who they're talking about. In the gratitude trainings, we have there's been a few conversations coming up about, like, is gratitude a cult? I know sometimes when you try to enroll someone in the training, they go online and they might find stuff on it. And it's actually, again, it's very interesting because it's a very offensive term to use, because when you use it in that respect, you're actually referring to destructive cults most of the time. Specifically, if you're like, I don't want to do that, that's a cult. If a cult is, buying an iPhone and being part of the cult of Apple, then I'm definitely sold. I am part of the cult of Apple. I'm part of the cult of Facebook. I'm part of a lot of cults in that respect. And in that respect, I am part of the cult of the gratitude training. A great devotion to a person, idea, object, movement, or work, piece of work, which could be a movie, the cult movies we talk about, or a group of people coming together. Like, that's simple. And most of the time for a cause or for something, there's a reason they come together. Like, they come together, actually, like just having people over to watch a football game, people coming together with a devotion to a team can actually be described in this definition as either cult or community. A lot of people, including myself, partake in a cult consciousness a lot. I mean, even like when we're watching even the political environment going on right now, there's a lot of what you're going to see when I describe cult. There's a lot of those things happening within our political environment, which I call cult consciousness. We're going to start with here is a community actually fosters relationship. Okay, so community fosters relationship. Now, what does that mean? It means basically that a community's fundamental function is to foster better relationships, specifically those closest to us, like our families. It teaches us to be a better brother, a better sister, a better mother, a better father, a better friend, a better lover, husband, wife, whatever. It actually fosters relationships. Now, as far as a cult goes, it actually ruins relationships. A destructive cult actually ruins relationships. It cuts you off from your friends and your family. It creates conflicts. It creates disagreements, arguments. And so basically what happens is when your family doesn't agree with your cult, they become your enemy. And then you try to force your ideology on your family. So a lot of times, actually, an organization or or a leader or a political environment might not actually have the cult mentality. However, the people within it sometimes may actually interpret it in a certain way and act out cultish consciousness. And here's a perfect example. You might have someone that have actually taken the gratitude training and they go home to their family and they want to enroll them in the training because it's one of the most powerful things ever, and the family's not interested. And then you keep pressing and pressing and pressing because you actually on some level want to force something that it might be great for them, but if they're a no, they're a no. And we get to respect each other, each other's no. Now, so in that case, a family could be, you're part of a cult, you're trying to force something on me. And it ruins the relationship. Now, back to community, fostering relationship would be, being in communication with people and being intimate, connected, and all these things to create a better relationship. And in some cases, someone might then go, you know what, I want to do this training because the way you're showing up is amazing. And we have intimacy and we have all these things now. Now, if we look at just the business environment too, a lot of times competition, judgment, antagonism, all of that is cult mentality. So we actually all have it. And we all are part of, actually at the gratitude training, we actually call that the drift. It's like drifty thinking. It's not critical thinking. It's just conformity. It's coming from fear, judgment, and all of that. And the drift is actually the mainstream of our nation. And I see it on TV every day. It's we try to fit in, and we come from the survival context. I've talked about that on other shows. If you want to find that, you can find that. But it's important that we start discern where we're coming from. Are we coming from our principles? Are we coming from love? Are we accepting? Are we loving? And move from there. Is gratitude a cult? And I love that it actually has the word gratitude. Is gratitude a cult? Yeah, well, gratitude is, if I look at the description that says great devotion to a person, idea, object, movement, or work, I am definitely devoted to the work of gratitude and what it creates for people in the world. And I can understand when people feel threatened. And here's why. Let's say that you're married to a guy who is a workaholic, pretty disconnected, always on the phone, whatever. Some things that, you maybe would rather see some other things. And then this guy, your husband, ends up going to a gratitude training and comes back in 4 days. And now demands intimacy, connection, want to spend more time with the kids, all these things. That's such an incredibly drastic change that I can see how that could be very threatening. And I could see how someone would be like, oh my God, like you're brainwashed. You know what I mean? And all I can say is that is the power of the trainings, because people actually get in touch with who they really are and what is important to them. And being a workaholic might not be that important once you start seeing, the things that really are for yourself. And maybe for someone could also come out and never worked and come back at 4 days later and be like, I want to work all the time. And that might be their passion. So it's not about what and how people come out. It's more like what's important to them, and then applying that and extending it into the world. The reason I started gratitude training is because I want to create world peace. Because I literally believe that even if the distinctions of the gratitude trainings were present right now in our political environment, we would see a completely different following. We would see completely different leaders. We would see completely different debates. That's my goal. That's what I want to see. And I will continue until I see that. And I'm committed to having that in my lifetime, our lifetime. So we better get going. When does the community swing to cult consciousness? This is a great question, Susan. When does the community swing to cult consciousness? So here's what happens. There are many communities today that have little cliques within them that actually could be described as cults. It happens. I mean, you could even look at Miami Dolphins fans, so like the full community is like, we love this team. We're together. We clap together. We want them to win. But then there might be cliques that become like the fanatics, or if you like any other team, you're wrong. And, like you see all the soccer games in England where they actually start hurting each other at the games. So there are, like I said, sometimes the people in a community can create that kind of cult-like mentality. And all we can do is, keep staying awake to it and keep nudging people and supporting them in not going into that kind of fear-based or destructive thinking, and just, again, and accept them for having their opinions. It's okay. I'm fine if not everyone in the world loves the gratitude training. However, I would invite people to see for themselves. And not judge prior to even experiencing it, because that doesn't work anywhere. You can't say I hate that job and you've never been in that job. You know what I mean? So I ask that you come see for yourself. How do you distinguish a good cult and a bad cult to people who are very scared? Um, well, if they're already scared, they're probably already in a cult because cult-based thinking. So that's the drift. Cult-based thinking is fear. It's constant fear-based. So I'm going to ask you a question. How do you distinguish a good cult and a bad cult? I would just explain it like people coming together for a good cause or to love something. And if you want to call that cult, then so be it. That would be quote unquote a good cult. A destructive cult, or what you call is a bad cult, is when some people are actually hurt, like they're hurting each other. And I'm talking like mass suicide, or they're forcing their ideology on them, or they're saying that you can't date that person because that person is not part of my religion. That's not a community. So I would just have them ask the question, what is it for? What is this community or what is this cult for? And if it's for something that you can get behind, then call it what you want and be part of it. If you can't get behind it because you see things that are harmful, then don't get behind it. Thank you all for commenting, and it's certainly been an honor to be here with you in this way. So is gratitude a cult? Based on today, you decide. That's it. Because yes, it's a cult, and no, it's not a destructive cult. It's a cult in the sense of Bikram yoga and Facebook and Starbucks and all the things that we get really excited about, and you really want to ask yourself, is it something that supports the greater good? Is it something that supports human beings? Is it something that supports us to be healthier and more awake? If so, call it what you want. I'm in. That's really my point. Ow!